Welcome. You're here with Why 5% Succeed. This is the show where we discuss the latest marketing tips, tools, tactics, and techniques that grow your business. Now, I'm your host, Elaine Starling, and today it's just going to be you and me. We're going to be having a really fun conversation about the 3 steps to attract and convert your ideal clients. Now, this is going to be a step-by-step guide to differentiating your business in a really crowded, saturated marketplace. So when you stop and think about it, when you step back and really think about your business and how do you grow a business, right? What are the big picture steps to growing a business? It's actually pretty simple. First, you attract qualified prospects, then you convert them into paying customers, and then you upsell them on additional products. That's really all you need to do. So why is it so hard? Why do so many people struggle with so many simple steps, just 3 simple steps? Well, I'm going to show you a very simple approach today that makes attracting and converting your ideal clients really fun and really easy for you. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in or how large your company is. When I'm working with my clients, typically they complain about 3 major challenges. The first challenge that they're dealing with is way too much information, right? Where should you focus your efforts to get the biggest return? There are so many different marketing tactics. There's so much to learn about each one. My clients say they're really afraid that they might miss something important that could make a fundamental difference to how quickly their business can grow. Well, the second challenge that they're facing is there's just too much to do. How can you get everything done in the limited amount of time you have to work with? The demands on your time seem to increase every single day, and your workload seems to double. So how can you manage your time really effectively so that you're working smarter instead of harder? And of course, the third big challenge is way too much competition. How can you stand out when the market's really saturated? How can you position your business as completely different and highly valuable when there are a lot of other people who are doing something kind of similar to what you do? Well, if you're in business today, these challenges probably look very familiar. And I'd love to help you resolve all 3 of these issues very quickly and easily in the time we have together through this simple 3-step process. Now, if you haven't done so, take a minute to download the handout for today's show. There's a link posted in the comments section. Dane, you can see his picture here. He's my Hangout manager. He'll repost that link. So you can take a quick minute to download the handout. Make sure that you've got some paper and a pen handy because this is a very interactive session and you're going to want to take some notes on your own business. We're going to customize this for you for your business during the show. Now, I promised to talk about the 3 steps to attract and convert your ideal clients. That means that what we're talking about today is marketing. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I got to tell you exactly what's going on in your ideal client's brain so that you're going to know that this approach can be really effective for you in your business. Okay, there are 3 levels to your brain: primitive, emotional, and analytical. Now, the primitive brain collects all the sensory information in sight, sound, scent, touch, taste, and it sorts for 3 big things. First of all, and the majority of things fall in this category, you can ignore this, has nothing to do with you. This has probably happened to you a lot. I know it happened to me. I needed to get something from a carpet store, and I called around and I heard about a store that was really nearby, and it was actually on a route that I took every single day to go to work. I didn't know there was a carpet store there, had no clue. I was like, how long have you guys been there? You must have just moved in. They were like, no, we've been here for 50 years. Well, it wasn't relevant to me before. So your brain actually blocks information if you don't think it's relevant. That's what your client's brain is doing. They want to know, do I really need to pay attention to this, or is it not relevant to me? Now, the second thing that the primitive brain is sorting for is, how confusing is this? Because today, with the age of information overwhelm, if it's really confusing, your clients will just ignore it and walk away. You've probably been cornered at some networking event, some well-meaning person who just bombards you with information after information, and you're just kind of reeling, right? You want to find the nearest exit. Too much information is scary, and you will push your prospect away. Now, the third thing that the primitive brain is looking for is they want to know, hey, that sounds really interesting. It's relevant to you. When that happens, when the primitive brain says, hey, that's really relevant, that's interesting, an emotion-laden, benefit-rich soundbite forms in the brain, and then the information gets kicked up to the second part of the brain. It's that emotional brain. Now, remember, I've talked about emotional sonar before. Think about it this way. The sensory information comes in, and your primitive brain asks, what does this mean to me? Your emotional brain immediately responds back with, here's how I feel about this. So it's an ongoing sonar. What does this mean? How do I feel? What does this mean? How do I feel? Constantly ongoing. Now, the more comfortable the emotional brain becomes, the more likely the information you're providing is going to get up to the highest level of the brain, the analytical brain. The analytical brain is where your client actually evaluates the pros and cons of your offer. They look at the benefits and features, and that's when they make the final purchase decision. In the book, Pitch Anything, the author is Oren Klaff. It's a great book, highly recommend it. But he notes that one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs in all companies make is that they tend to approach a prospect with their analytical brain. And it's a very common problem because you're an expert. You're really good at what you do. You've been doing it for years. You have honed your craft, and you're passionate and really excited about what you do. You want to show that you understand your subject in a lot of detail. But remember, we were talking about the primitive brain, and your prospect is showing up from their primitive brain. So when you provide too much information, it overwhelms your prospect's primitive brain, and it can scare them away. So the key is to walk step by step with your prospect so that you reassure their primitive brain, and then you entice their emotional brain so that their analytical brain is willing to get involved. Skip any of those steps and you never get to the word go. So let's start talking about the 3 steps to attract and convert your ideal clients. Step 1. Make it easy for your prospect to understand the value you provide. When you communicate in a way that's easy to understand, it's really reassuring to the primitive brain. So I want you to do an exercise. Hopefully you took a minute to download the PDF. If you didn't, just take a piece of paper and write down some information. So step 1 is make it easy for your prospect to understand the value you provide. And the exercise is I want you to summarize your process in 3 or 5 big steps and then name each step in your process. That's called your framework. A framework is just the simple summary of the big steps to your process. So take a quick minute to jot down 3 or 5 big picture steps. This is really key because it helps avoid information overload, it saves time, and it helps differentiate your business. Now, while you're writing this down, I'm going to give you a few examples. Have you ever ordered anything online before? Yeah, I know. My entire holiday shopping this year was done online. It saved me so much time. Well, a really good website walks you through the steps in order to complete your order. So you always know where you are in the process, right? First, it lets you take a look at the shopping cart and see what you've got in there. Then it asks you for your shipping information. Where do you want the stuff to go? Then it looks for your billing information. Then there's that final thing where they warn you, you haven't really ordered it yet. You have to push OK. They're setting your expectations the whole way along. They're helping you control the experience. Here's another example. Take a book, any book like mine. Inside every book, you'll find a table of contents. A table of contents is the framework of the book. Every single story has a framework that's called the hero's journey, so that you know that hero arc, and you can see the challenge, the frustration, what they need to overcome, you know, how they made it through these challenges and the victories that they experienced, how the whole experience transformed them, and how they were able to rise to the occasion. It's called the hero's journey. And it really helps you make sense out of a story. Well, there are 3 steps that I teach in my online training and group coaching. The 3 steps are the mindset, the message, and the media that bring in the money. Frameworks surround us for a really important reason. Frameworks let you immediately know where you are and where you're going. They set expectations. That's incredibly reassuring and empowering. So I hope you took a minute to jot down just one word for each step in your process. It can be just a placeholder for now, that's fine. Now, you can use alliteration the way I do. I tend to use the same letter at the beginning of each word. You'll notice my 3-step process I'm covering today. Each step starts with the letter E. You can also have your process spell out a word. But for now, just use a placeholder word so that you remember exactly what you mean, and you can always pretty it up later. Now, one of the biggest challenges my clients always have to overcome, and it's something that I struggle with too, it's a tendency to make things more complicated than they need to be. And I think the cause of this is something called unconscious competence. You are so good at what you do that you think everybody understands your subject with the same level of detail and complex analysis that's just innate for you. You instinctively come from your analytical brain when you talk about your topic, your area of expertise. And that's a huge problem because making something complex is really confusing. Confusion creates caution. Clarity promotes action. Using a simple framework establishes clarity and allows you to quickly connect with your ideal client.
Stop for a sec. I think the internet's dead.
You're back.
Okay. Have a look at your video. He can edit this. Have a look at your video. Make sure it's
Okay, we're going to make sure the internet's still working here. Hopefully it is. But if it isn't, I'll apologize and you'll be able to access the recording later. So I'm going to keep going. But the thing that I really want you to understand here is confusion is a huge issue. Confusion creates caution. People hold back on making a purchase decision if they're confused. Worse yet, they're so freaked out they don't want to have anything to do with you. Clarity, by providing a framework, promotes action. Clarity promotes action. Using a simple framework establishes that clarity and allows you to really quickly connect with your ideal client. Now, making something simple can feel really hard when you know a lot about a topic. Trust me on this. So let's take an example and do this together. Let's take the example of climbing Mount Everest. And we're going to make that really simple, easy to understand in 3 simple steps. Okay, Mount Everest is really high up in the mountains and it's very, very cold. So step 1, make sure you're wearing suitable clothing for extremely cold conditions, right? Step 2, put one foot in front of the other. Step 3, go up. Okay, I'm being overly simplistic, right? Climbing Mount Everest is way more challenging than that. So is your solution. So is your process. There's a lot more to it than 3 simple steps or 5 simple steps. And you might mistakenly think that you're dumbing things down too much, but you're not. The critical thing is to make your process easy to understand so that your prospect can make a fast decision. You're actually aligning with your client's primitive brain so that you ensure your information is relevant and interesting, because only when it's relevant and interesting does it get moved into their emotional brain. So hopefully you've had a little bit of time to jot down your 3 or 5 steps, and please share those 3 or 5 steps for your framework in the comments here. And I'll get back to it. I'll check and see if anybody's posted some comments. We're having a few technical difficulties, so we'll see if this all works. And if it does, and if anybody posts, then I'll be sure to share those with everyone while we're here. A framework is one very highly effective technique to make your information easy to understand. And it was pretty easy for you to brainstorm 3 or 5 steps for your process, right? You do this all the time. It's no big deal. You can quickly come up with 3 to 5 things. Now, there are some additional techniques that help make your information easy to understand, but because we have a limited amount of time today, I'm going to move on to step 2, which is making your information engaging. You know, like many of my clients, you might struggle with this one at first, but you'll very quickly become an old hand. We're going to work through this process, and it's really easy. Like my clients, you might think that making your information engaging is really hard to do when you have to keep it simple too, right? It seems like it's one or the other, but not both at the same time. Now, let's take a look at the brain again. Remember, there are 3 levels to your brain: the primitive brain, the emotional brain, and the analytical brain. The primitive brain is sorting for 3 things. You can ignore this, has nothing to do with you. This is overwhelming and scary. I don't want to deal with it right now. Or this is really interesting. I want to know more. This is when an emotion-laden, benefit-rich soundbite forms in your emotional brain. When you communicate in a way that's easy to understand, it's very reassuring and empowering to the primitive brain because it creates control. They know where you're going. They know what to expect. The emotional brain is a little different. The emotional brain wants things to be engaging and interesting. In other words, the emotional brain of your prospect wants to play with you. They want to be involved in your experience. How can you foster interaction with your prospects? How can you get them to follow that bouncing ball and actually play with you? Here's one simple tactic you can use to immediately enthrall the emotional brain. What questions could you ask your prospect as you take her through your process? Think about that for a second. What questions could you ask your prospect as you take her through your process? Questions are a pattern interrupt. Your brain automatically engages. It is compelled to find an answer to the question. So when I asked you what questions could you ask your prospect as you take her through your process, your brain immediately started to come up with a question or two, didn't it? Right. It's automatically. Your prospect's brain just instantly starts playing along with you, experiencing your process as you take her through it. So I hope that you're able to start doing this right away. Again, if you're following along and you have the handout, step 2 is make it engaging, and you want to identify your questions. So write down some of the questions that you might be asking that align with your process. Let me give you an example here. It's an example I like to use a lot because most people are familiar with it. When you go into a coffee shop like a Starbucks, the barista asks you a series of questions. She wants to know what size drink you want. She wants to know if you want something hot or something cold. And of course, she usually will ask if you'd like something to eat with that. Questions are a really fast way to foster engagement. And the cool thing about engagement is engagement creates trust. The more engaged your prospect is, the more she's actually creating exactly what she wants to buy from you. So it's an incredibly dynamic and compelling experience as you make your experience more engaging for your prospect. So I hope you'll take a quick minute to share a question that you could ask your prospects during your process. Share that with us. I'm going to check in a minute and see if we have any questions, see if anybody's playing with me, and I'll be happy to point those out in just a minute. But I'm going to keep going in the interest of time. Now, there's an important thing to remember about engagement, okay? Even if you're having a little trouble coming up with some questions, and it probably is pretty easy for you to come up with questions, but the thing that engages people the most, more than anything else in the world, is other people. Yeah, we love to people watch, and the more unique the individual is, the more compelled we are to watch them. Somebody who's passionate about what they do is always engaging. Have you noticed that my event banner for this Why 5% Succeed show says join in the fun? I'm a marketing geek. I love this stuff. It is so engaging and entertaining to me to learn about, think about, create marketing. I eat, breathe, sleep, dream. I probably even bleed marketing. I just love it. I love everything about it. And I'm so convinced that marketing is absolutely everything in life. Everything is marketing in some form or another. I'm totally convinced. And I know that from birth, you are an automatic marketing machine. It's a lot easier than you think. Much easier than you think. And my clients love my style. They love that I'm playful, that I have fun with what I'm doing, even if that's not their style. Why? Because my commitment to their successful outcome is totally apparent in everything I do. Another example for you, my tax preparer, Bob. I hate taxes. I don't know about you, but Man, if they don't put me to sleep, it just feels like absolute torture. Last thing in the world I want to do is deal with my taxes. Well, when I go to meet with my tax preparer, Bob, I feel like, I mean, he goes through the initial getting to know you and getting caught up stuff. But the whole time, I can tell he just wants me to throw him his numbers, right? Throw the numbers, throw the numbers. He wants to play with those numbers. He can't wait to get his hands on my numbers. And it's so fun just experiencing Bob's love of doing taxes when it's something that's so not my experience. It makes it a lot more enjoyable. His passion and enthusiasm for what he does makes my experience better. And that's the same thing for you. What I'm trying to say is that the most powerful way to engage your audience is to just be yourself. Don't worry about looking just so or perfecting exactly what you're going to say. Relax. Be you. It's you that people really want because you are what engaged them to begin with. It's kind of like that old game that you played when you were a kid, warmer and colder, right? You remember that? Where you tell somebody, oh, you're getting warmer, you're in the tropics, you're almost there. Or they're getting colder, oh, Siberia, you're going to fall off the iceberg when they're walking away from the object that you were trying to direct them to. Well, your prospect does the same thing. Your prospect plays warmer and colder with you. She will tell you what she wants as you walk her through your process. She will love you for being so thoughtful and so thorough. Look, people have to know, like, and trust you before they're willing to buy, right? So when you make information easy for them to understand, your ideal client is much more likely to like you. Remember, most of your prospects are trying to overcome that information overload problem. Keeping it simple automatically helps your prospect manage her fear. She will love you for it. When you make your information engaging, that's when your prospect starts to trust you. After all, you're engaging her in the process so that she creates exactly what she wants to buy. So you're actually saving her time. And when it's all your prospect's idea, because she's playing with you, she's helping shape this thing, she's much more likely to trust it and trust you as a consequence. Now, if you recall what I said when we got started, I talked about the 3 big problems that clients typically face. Well, the second big one is how to get everything done. Managing your time is a huge problem. Just by engaging your prospect in your process and helping her walk through a series of questions helps her manage her time better because you're helping her maintain focus on something that's important to her. It's that simple. Really, it is. Okay, let's move on to step 3. The third E in our process. Step 1 is make your information easy to understand. Step 2, make your information engaging. Step 3, make your information effective. We're in an entirely new era of marketing. And most people make this mistake, maybe your competitors are doing this, where they're just telling prospects about their products over and over and over again. They're bombarding prospects with information, hoping that somehow just being buried alive is going to convince them to buy, right? It's not a very effective strategy. When we've got a situation of information overload, people are turning things off. They're turning away, they're unsubscribing, they're getting out of that information overload. In today's marketing environment, your prospects want to experience your product or service and actually receive benefit from you before they buy. Before they buy. So in other words, every single interaction, every single marketing touch point should benefit your prospect from the word go. And there are lots of different ways that your prospect can benefit from you. Making your information easy to understand gives that prospect a feeling of control and confidence. You're helping her manage her fear. It's a very important benefit. It's something I hit hard on over and over again. Making your information engaging gives your prospect a very interesting, fun experience that builds her trust. You're helping her maintain focus. That's another really important benefit. Making your information effective by solving a real problem for your prospect immediately positions you as a trusted authority and instantly engages the analytical brain. Even if your prospect doesn't buy right now, and frankly, only 3% of people are ready to buy right now anyway, There's a cycle that people go through. So there's always 97% of people who aren't ready to buy. And if you just bombard them with information, you're going to tick them off. But when you help them solve a real problem, well, now your prospect feels good about her experience with you, even if she didn't buy right now. But she'll want to experience more of you because you're interesting, you provide real value, you're effective. And furthermore, she's very likely to tell other people about you. Now, again, it's much easier than you think because you are automatically a marketing expert and a value-adding machine. It's so automatic for you to create value in every single interaction. And I'm going to prove it to you with a very simple exercise. Now, if you have the handout, that's great. You can use the handout here, or you could take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of it. Now, on the left side of your paper, write the word problem. And on the right side, write the word potential solutions. 2 words, sorry, potential solutions. So on the left is problem, on the right, potential solutions. And I'm going to want you to take a few minutes to brainstorm a list of problems that your ideal clients are dealing with, and these are all problems that you can help them solve. Okay? So first come up with a list of problems. Then you're going to go back, and on the right-hand side, opposite each one of those problems, you're going to brainstorm a list of potential solutions that you can offer that help solve that problem. There's usually a handful of alternative approaches you can use with your clients to help solve any specific problem. Just think up a few different things that you can help them do. The third step you're going to do is pick one of those solutions, just one of them, and identify a series of action steps that you can walk your client through so they can get results in advance. You want to teach your prospects how to do these action steps for that specific solution and provide a context of a bigger picture of all the things that your product or service can deliver. Teaching someone something that's step by step is a really, really great way for your prospect to experience in advance what it's like to work with you. She immediately gets to know how easy it is to understand you. She experiences one of your frameworks from the word go. She quickly understands how she can generate results with you. Just by doing exercises and answering questions, she's automatically creating a solution that's perfect for her own situation. She's engaged with you. And she discovers just how well she can solve a real problem with your help because you're providing step-by-step guidance that's easy to understand and simple to do. Making your information effective is all about what Frank Kern calls results in advance. You're actually solving a real problem through step-by-step training as a way of allowing your prospect to sample your product or service before the sale. You're creating rapport, you're creating alignment, you're developing a relationship. This approach automatically differentiates you from all of your competition, who's probably just beating people up with buy now messages instead of providing solid, useful, applicable insight. But you know what? Even if they are doing training, their training is not going to be exactly like yours. You have a unique approach. You have your own examples and case studies. You have your own worksheets and structure. It makes you completely unique. Let me give you an example of one of the things that I do. So one of my products is called the Ultimate Frequently Asked Question and Should Ask Question Guide. How to write your book, create your web copy, generate unlimited blog posts, create captivating videos, and increase your social media connections with simple questions. Now, I can teach just one aspect of how to use the Ultimate FAQ and SAQ Guide. For example, maybe I just teach how to write your book, right? That could be a free training that I do. But my prospect might also want to increase their social media connections. So I can teach just one aspect of my product and at the same time let my prospects know the entirety of the value that the product delivers. Does that make sense? So it's a both and. I'm giving them real value that they can apply right away, and they kind of get a hint of how it would work for all the other things they want to use. But if they love the way I explain things and the examples I use and the exercises I provide, the templates that are there, then they're going to want more, and they're much more likely to buy. Okay, I want to summarize this third step again, just in case you missed anything. So step 1 is brainstorm a list of problems that your ideal client is dealing with right now that you can solve for them. Step 2, go back and look at each problem by itself and then brainstorm a list of potential solutions that you can offer that would solve that problem. There should be 3 to 5 solutions that you can come up with. Step 3, pick one of those solutions that you just came up with and identify a series of action steps that you could teach in your marketing. Now, hopefully you're with me and our technology is working. And if it is, please post just the name of the solution that you plan to teach in the comments. Like I would teach how to write a book with FAQs and SAQs, right? Take some time to write down the solution that you plan to teach in the comments. So the 3 steps that we talked about are easy, engaging, and effective. It's really simple, right? Does it feel a little too simple? Well, your ideal clients won't think so. Your ideal clients want to taste test the kinds of results that you generate while getting to know, like, and trust you. The 3 steps to attract and convert your ideal clients, again, number 1, make your information easy to understand. Number 2, make your information engaging. And number 3, make your information effective by teaching a step-by-step solution to a real problem. Easy, engaging, and effective. It's honestly the fastest and easiest way to differentiate your business in a crowded, saturated marketplace. I hope you found today's information really useful. I'd love to know what you plan to implement from what you learned today. Please take a minute to write that in the comment line and make sure you connect with me on all the social media platforms. I'd love to hear more from you, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the training. It's next Wednesday, which is January 14th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. I'll see you then.